Happy Sunday. Hello, hello. 4 o'clock, 4:01 on a Sunday, a gloomy Sunday at that. And I wanted to come online and talk about the 3 weight loss mistakes that you could be making. And the reason I want to specifically talk about this is because I had a conversation with a client this week, a new client, and these 3 things popped up in that conversation. And it is one of the, well, 3 of the things that I hear on repeat with many of the clients that I work with. So I want to go through what they are because it's something that one or all of them you probably have thought about and are relying upon as we speak right now, and you're just not seeing the success that you want. Your intentions are great, you're totally committed, but it's just not happening. This particular client, I will tell you, she had all the right intentions and felt, was very committed and, thought she was doing all the right things, had a routine in place, had systems in place, all of the things. But as she said to me, she just was not seeing any shift in her weight at all, up or down. And that's why she came to me, because a lot of women are frustrated because they feel like maybe they're doing all the right things, but they're not seeing success, or they're very confused about really the right way to approach weight loss. Now, I will say to you that I am a habits-based coach, number one, but one of the things that I do is that I curate really the program. That's why the coaching component to any weight loss program or lifestyle program is really important, because then we can curate the program for you. So, and that's exactly what I do. So in my conversation with her, what happened is of course, I'm asking her about what she's eating. And then obviously what she's doing for exercise, what's her stress levels like, what's her lifestyle like, and those sorts of things. So we actually go through that and then we unravel all of these things. So let me walk you through the 3 weight loss mistakes in this particular conversation that happened, but in a lot of the conversations that I have with women, so that we can set the record straight. And I will always give you the education on why things like this happen. So the first one that I see that happens is that a lot of women are restricting what they eat. So they are, quite frankly, not eating enough food. So I'll give you an example of what this client told me she was eating. So she didn't eat a typical plated dinner at night. What she would do was have a smoothie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Oftentimes, for myself personally, if I have a late night or I'm at a bit of a social event where there isn't a lot of food, and then you get home at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and you don't want a big meal, actually a smoothie is a really good option to take. However, when I was walking through what she was putting in the smoothie, it was blueberries, water, spinach, and that's pretty much it. So from a smoothie standpoint, that's not enough. And she's likely under eating. So when we are under eating, and another example before I go there, is that I find a lot of women, and in particular this woman too as well, so if she doesn't have a smoothie, she's having a salad. So she'll have a romaine salad or a kale salad with some raw vegetables, and that's it. She sometimes will have a protein on there, but that is it. So that's another thing that I see a lot of women do, is that they think that they have to eat less. And that's not the case. In this particular situation, I told her, you're not eating enough. And I find probably 8 or 9 times out of 10 of the women that I come across actually don't eat enough. So I actually have them do a food journal for a week, and I just take a look at it, and most of the time they're just not eating enough. So I go back to them and I say, you actually need more on your plate. And I walk them through exactly what that may be and what that would look like. So the reason for this is that when we are eating far fewer calories than we should. The body doesn't know the difference between famine and restriction, or starvation and restriction. Those are two very different things for a lot of you, right? But the body doesn't know any different. So if we are somebody who deals with a high amount of stress and things like that, that doesn't help the situation either, but the body doesn't know the difference between the two, so it will still hold on to weight because it doesn't know the difference between you actually in a starvation mode, not your fault, or when you're actually restricting yourself. So oftentimes you will say, well, I only eat chicken and salad for dinner. Why am I not losing weight? It's likely because your body is holding on to it, because you are eating far too little calories for your body, and it doesn't know the difference between the two. So that's obviously why sometimes it's very beneficial to work with somebody that can actually help you create sort of a program or show you how to eat a plate properly. But there's some elements in that plate that are really essential, which is protein and fat. And in this case, this particular client, from a smoothie standpoint, I told her, you know, invest maybe in a higher quality protein, and then definitely add some fat. So maybe that's some nut butter, like almond butter, tahini, even peanut butter if you tolerate it. Adding in some avocados, maybe some coconut oil, anything like that, so that at least your body feels like it's satiated and full. And she actually also had chronic, she has arthritis actually. So, and the type of arthritis that she has is very inflammatory. So, you know, adding in some extra vegetables and like romaine and spinach, those were really good options for her at the time. But you want to add in maybe some almond milk, that's got some protein in it too as well. So trying to reduce the inflammation in the body, and definitely adding in ample amounts of vegetables is really going to be beneficial. So if she's just eating a salad for dinner, again, it's kind of the same rule applies. You want to make sure that you have enough protein and that you have enough fat, and then a lot of vegetables, of course, whether that's raw or steamed, whatever that may be. But you basically want to take a look at your plate differently and make sure all of those important nutrients are there, but that you also have the fat and the protein to help manage your blood sugar. Because your blood sugar, if it's not adequately balanced, you're going to be craving all the things too as well. And again, it's kind of that vicious cycle, right? So that's mistake number one, which is restricting yourself too much or restricting the types of foods that you eat. Now, the second myth is low carb or low fat. I wanted to add in low carb and low fat because I find there's two schools of people that I work with that either are like, oh, I need to eat low fat, or I need to eat low carb. So I kind of was raised in the low fat era, which is like the 80s and 90s, where, you know, everybody thought low fat was the way to go and that was the best way for weight loss. And then what ended up happening is that companies removed the fat, but then they added in all the sugar. So none of us were losing weight anyways because we were consuming too much sugar. So vicious cycle again. But low carb and low fat are really the opposite things that we want to happen. We don't necessarily want to be eating all the fat because not all fat is equal. And we don't necessarily want to be removing all of the carbohydrates, but we don't also want to consume too many carbohydrates. It's got to be a bit of a happy medium. So let's break down low fat. The reason why, well, really, in both cases, we want sort of moderate fat and moderate carbohydrates for two very important reasons. Well, three actually. We want to properly manage our blood sugar. So low blood sugar and high blood sugar can definitely impact your weight and your weight loss goals. If it's too high or it's too low, we're craving all the things. We're craving sugar, so we're consuming sugar all the time. We want to keep our blood sugar level, and that's where fat and carbohydrates are incredibly important. The other thing too as well is that we need fat in particular to help with hormone production. So raise your hand if you are a woman who is late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever the case may be, and you've got really imbalanced hormones. Especially when we're over the age of 40, our hormones do take a deep dive. And I'm 42 and I'm experiencing it myself, which is why I went to a naturopath and I've been seeking help in that area. And it's definitely one of the things that I help women with too as well, is to help really manage all of their hormones as we get into the stage of life. But we need fat to help with the production of hormones. So we definitely don't want to remove fat from our diet. So good sources of fat, for example, could be avocados, olives, avocado oil and olive oil, hemp hearts, definitely high quality cuts of meat, have great fat in them, and in particular things like beef and chicken thighs, not chicken breasts, but chicken thighs, or darker cuts of meat, essentially. From the low carbohydrate standpoint, the reason why we don't want to completely omit carbohydrates, it also helps to support our hormones, but carbohydrates are sort of the key to sleep. So raise your hand, especially if you are 40 plus and you've noticed your sleep has shifted. So I always say, if you're going to limit your carbohydrates, you limit them maybe during the day. And I say limit them, not remove them, but definitely want to ensure that you are eating carbohydrates at night, because they help with sleep so much. And it's really just key for a good night's sleep. So let me give you some examples of what carbohydrates we would be looking at. Most of the carbohydrates that I would recommend for women are going to come from vegetables. So your cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli. You could even have in some carrots or sweet potatoes, smaller amounts too as well. We don't want to eat too many of those starchy carbohydrates, but we definitely want to incorporate some of them. You could eat some rice, for example, if you do tolerate grains, but it would be maybe keeping it to about half a cup of cooked of those starchy carbs at night is my recommendation. So we don't want to go low fat and we don't want to go entirely low carb. I know a lot of you are sort of tired of the keto this, keto that sort of thing. I completely understand because it is a very popular eating lifestyle, but you may want to aim for something a little bit more higher fat, lower carb, so that you at least have a little bit of a balanced approach to your nutrition. So weight loss mistake number 3 is over exercising. So the client that I was speaking with this week was somebody who had a regular exercise program. So she was doing cardio every single day, at least over an hour, well, an hour each day minimum, if not more. So she was running on a treadmill pretty much 7 days a week. She actually works on her feet quite a lot, so she gets in lots of steps as it is. But a lot of you are, ambitious, career-driven women with a lot of stress. And the thing about it is, over-exercising is a stressor on the body as it is. So if you are dealing with chronic stress every single day, and you should know when that is, everybody goes through a period of time where there's more stress than others. But if you are constantly, every single day, dealing with high levels of stress, over-exercising or doing excessive cardio, most days of the week is not going to help the situation. And the reason why is that it's obviously additional stress on the body. And when the body is in a state of stress, it's going to protect us, which means that it's going to hold on to all that fat because it's trying to protect us. So especially if you hold a lot of your weight in the midsection, it's generally stress related and blood sugar imbalance related. And if that is something that happens with you, because that's where I hold mine, because I'm a bit of a stress case myself sometimes, if you're holding it in your midsection, it's definitely connected to stress or blood sugar imbalances, or maybe even both. So if we're always amped up in a stressful state, our body is going to hold on to fat. So over exercising, exercising too much or too long, excessive cardio is not necessarily the way to go. So for example, if I am in that situation myself where I feel like there's too much going on, I know I need to go to the gym, but I'm dealing with a lot of stress. I need to get out of my head. I need to be in a more of a relaxed state. Then what I will do is maybe one of two things: go to a yoga class or go for a long walk. And sometimes it's nothing at all. So I work with clients who deal with a lot of stress. They're career-driven, ambitious women, lots on their plate, very busy. And I teach them that given the time of your life, sometimes you actually need to scale it back. So you can definitely lose weight without exercising, for sure. It's definitely going to plateau at some point, but you oftentimes have to deal with the stress, get your lifestyle together, create systems, put systems in place to help support your goals. And then potentially you can amp up the exercise to really ultimately amp up your weight loss along the way. So definitely exercising is very important when you're trying to lose weight, but I want you to be cautious on how much you're doing, the types that you are doing. You know, resistance workouts would be beneficial. You know, definitely lifting weights is highly beneficial for women in particular, especially if you're over the age of 40, but weights are not going to make you bulk up unless you are like really killing it. But if you're reaching for 10, 15 pound weights, it's a really great way to lean your body, help produce those healthy hormones like testosterone that we need as we get older, all of those things. So don't overlook exercising, but I'm just saying if you are dealing with high levels of stress, hitting the treadmill for an hour and 15-minute run or an hour run or even a 45-minute high impact run is not necessarily going to help you in the end, because like I said, your body, if it's in a stressful state, it's going to hold on to our weight because it's trying to protect us. It doesn't know what kind of stress we're dealing with. It doesn't know if we've had an argument with our husband or we've just lost our job. Two very different spectrums, right? So keep that in mind. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. So I want to go back to the 3 weight loss mistakes that you could be making in case you've just joined, because I see a lot of you joining. Hello. The first one is restrictive eating. So eating far too little than what your body actually needs. And like I said, 8 to 9 out of 10 of my clients, one of my top recommendations to them is that they need to eat more. Shocker. Even the client that I was speaking to about in the beginning of this video, I told her that and she almost fell off her chair. She couldn't believe it. When I always love having that conversation with a woman saying, you just don't eat enough. Number 2 is eating low fat or low carb. We need fat and we need carbohydrates, especially women, for hormone production and for helping us sleep. And we love our sleep. And number 3 is over-exercising. So we don't want to be over-exercising, especially if we're dealing with a lot of chronic stress in our life. Very important to balance that. It's very important to exercise, but we don't necessarily have to hit the treadmill for an hour of high-impact running. That's not always the best result. So there you have it. If you have any questions about this topic or any other topic, I want you to add a comment in the comment box. If you are watching this replay or you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to add your comments. Be sure to, of course, go to my Smarter Weight Loss group. If you are already in there, thank you for being here. But definitely join that group where I give a lot of advice and suggestions, recipes, all sorts of things, do lots of videos, lots of things to help you along in your weight loss journey. Other than that, I wish you a great weekend and we will see you next week.